What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and here we are taking a look at the Protection Paladin, and what I would consider by far probably the easiest tank to end up playing so far in Legion. Not so much for difference in gameplay or how easy it is, but the fact that not only did they gut out Holy Power on this spec, but they also made it to where everything is straight damage reduction. There's no thought process in it like your warriors and your bears and everything else, to where you have to decide on whether are you wanting to block out magic or are you wanting to block out physical damage. There's none of that, it's just straight damage reduction. And with this, let's go ahead and start off by taking a look at the abilities. So here we are taking a look at the abilities for the Protection Paladin. And first things first, Ardent Defender is right up at the top. Not a lot has changed with this, 2-minute cooldown, but it reduces all damage you take by 20% for 8 seconds, and while it is active, the next attack that would otherwise kill you will bring you to 12% of your max health. Avenger Shield, instant, 13.2 second cooldown, but it is reduced by haste. The more haste you have, the faster you'll be able to cast this. Does some great holy damage. It interrupts and silences the non-player target, the first one that you cast it on, and then jumps to 2 nearby enemies. Avenging Wrath, instant, 2-minute cooldown, increases all damage and healing you deal by 35% for 20 seconds. Now you still have your blessings. Blessing of Freedom, 25-second cooldown, and it's going to grant immunity to movement impairing effects for 8 seconds. Blessing of Protection, places a blessing on a party or raid member, protecting them from all physical attacks for 10 seconds, cannot be used on other targets with forbearance, and causes forbearance for 30 seconds. Now the thing about this that has changed is the fact that it can be cast and you can still end up attacking, so they're just not going to take any physical damage during that time. It's going to be great, and you're also not going to mess up anybody. Blessing of Sacrifice, 3-minute cooldown, places a blessing on a party or raid member, transferring 30% of the damage taken to you for 12 seconds or until transfer damage would bring you to fall below 20% health. This is great for off-tanking, or if somebody's got threat or aggro for some reason. You can always end up using this to end up reducing their damage that they're taking. More than likely, you're going to use it as an external to whoever's tanking the boss at the time in a raid situation. Cleanse Toxins is still here. Instant, 8-second cooldown. Cleanses a friendly target, removing all poison and disease effects. Consecration. Consecrate is going to be part of your core rotation. You're going to want to use it when it's off cooldown all the time, because it does affect a couple of your other abilities differently, and we'll go over that when we get to the abilities. But it still ends up dropping down and does AoE damage everything, and it feels pretty damn solid. I mean, it's just the basic fire and forget AoE that we know about, as long as you keep it on cooldown. And again, it is reduced by haste also. Divine Shield, instant, 5-minute cooldown, protects you from all damage and spells for 8 seconds, cannot be used if you have forbearance, causes forbearance for 30 seconds. And again, this is going to end up protecting you, and you can still end up damaging, and you do not lose threat. They actually have a talent built in now to where you taunt everything, and we'll go over that in a few. Divine Steed, instant, 22.5 second cooldown. Normally this is 45 seconds, but I do have this talented to where it's got a reduced cooldown and also acts as some damage mitigation. But we'll go over that later. But what's it going to do? It's going to make you jump on a mount for 3 seconds and allow you to move extremely quickly. 100% increased movement speed. And you can use it indoors, in combat, whatever. Eye of Tyr. This is going to be your artifact ability. Now, it doesn't look that great. In my opinion, the spell effect itself is kind of on the weak side. But it's going to do moderate holy damage to all nearby enemies and reducing all damage they deal to you by 25%. Now, if you end up looking, you're going to see, there it is, and then they've got the debuff, 25% less damage to the Paladin. So it does end up helping out in multiple target tanking, and it's really nice to end up seeing, as to where everything on this, instead of having spell damage of some sort or physical damage absorption, all of your damage absorption is reduced damage, period. Very interesting. It makes it very simplified for the Prot Paladin. Then you've got Flash of Light, a quick but expensive heal. Just general Flash of Light, guys. Nothing too great on it. Does cause 15,000 mana though, and as you can see, 76,000. There's not a whole lot of play there. Guardian of Ancient Kings. Now, they've done some reworking with this one also. It is a 5-minute cooldown. It reduces all damage you take by 50% while you are empowered. Now, the thing about it is, this actually is only an 8-second cooldown, but you can see it actually turns you into the Guardian instead of having the Guardian channel on you now. Really interesting, cool effect, and it's great damage reduction, but it is a 5-minute cooldown. Hammer of Justice, 1-minute cooldown. It's just going to stun the target. Really, it's nothing too great for a PvE side, but you can stop like blade storms from certain non-interruptible effects. If you end up stunning out the targets, it does play out very nicely. Now, Hammer of the Righteous, our first ability that we're coming up to that's actually affected by Consecrate. And how is it? Well, currently it's going to just do regular physical damage, but while you're standing in your Consecrate, Hammer of the Righteous also causes a wave of light that hits all other targets within 8 yards for holy damage. So, basically we'll walk up here and you can see it do its normal tick, and then anytime you end up hitting Hammer, you're going to end up seeing the additional splash damage. And it's good not only for AoE, but it's also really good for single target due to the fact that it's going to hit that target also with additional holy damage. It's great additional damage. Hand of Reckoning is still your basic taunt. Judgment's got a little bit of a difference also. You can see that it's got a cooldown that's reduced by haste, but you're going to judge the target, dealing decent holy damage and reducing the remaining cooldown on Shield of the Righteous by 1 second or 2 seconds on critical strikes. Lay on Hands, instant, 10-minute cooldown. Heals a friendly target for the amount equal to your maximum health. Cannot be used on targets with Forbearance. And again, Lay on Hands is just working the same as what it is on live, but it has a 10-minute cooldown. Light of the Protector, another one that is affected by your Consecrate. Calls down a light to heal you for 25% of your missing health. While you're standing in your Consecration, Light of the Protector's healing is increased by 20%. The self-healing on this is based on the percentage of your actual health. Now, the thing is, what you're really looking at is, if you're at, let's say, 50% health or less, this is actually going to be more effective than what it would be above that. At 50% health, you're looking at 50% of your health if you even take that much damage. There's a lot of damage reduction on this spec, but this is also a great time piece to end up keeping you in control. Rebuke interrupts spellcasting and prevents any spell in that school from being cast for 4 seconds. Just a standard interrupt. Redemption, this is going to be your res. Shield of the Righteous, your bread and butter damage mitigation. Slams the target with your shield, causing great holy damage and reducing damage you take by 39% for 4.5 seconds. Now, this 39% is upgraded through your mastery, and we'll go over that here in a minute. While you're standing in your Consecration, Shield of the Righteous effects are increased by 20%. So it was 39%, now we'll go ahead and cast that up to 47%. So it is a great deal to end up keeping yourself inside your Consecration at most times, because not only does it improve the damage of the spell, it improves the actual damage reduction. Grand Crusader, passive. When you avoid a melee attack or use Hammer of the Righteous, you have a 15% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Avenger's Shield. This is just a great piece for you. Now, you don't normally end up doing a lot of avoiding on the attacks, but Hammer of the Righteous being part of your core rotation, you still see Avenger's Shield procs quite a bit. Heart of the Crusader, passive, increases your mounted speed by 20%. This does not stack with other movement speed increasing effects, just normal everyday deal. And then here's your mastery finally. Increases damage reduction from Shield of the Righteous by 12% and increases your chance to block melee attacks by 25%. Also increases your attack power by 25%. So really what you're looking at is this is still giving you the block, this is still giving the Shield of the Righteous reduction, and it's also giving you some attack power. So mastery is looking pretty high on this spec. I'm thinking more haste mastery for the cooldown reductions, but still this is going to play out very nicely. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and move right on into the talents. Alright, so our talents are pretty straightforward. First, Avenger. Passive. Increases the damage of Avenger's Shield by 50% and increases the chance for its remaining cooldown to be reset by abilities and talents by 50%. But it now only hits one target. This is great for single target boss fights, but not so much if you're actually having to control ads. Bastion of Light, 3-minute cooldown, immediately grants 3 charges of Shield of the Righteous. This is going to be great for clutch situations. If you have no Shield of the Righteous and you know you're about to get destroyed, you can pop this thing and actually end up going straight into 3 Shield of the Righteouses, or, you know, go back in an actual time period if you're actually having some bad luck with them. They come off cooldown quick enough themselves, so if you actually do end up timing them well, it'll do print on its own. Crusader's Judgment. Passive Judgment can now also trigger Grand Crusaders. So basically I can get my stuff put on my Avenging Shield on cooldown a lot quicker if I end up using Judgment, just because it's got a chance to trigger it now. Level 30, Holy Shield, increases your block chance by 10%, allows you to block spells, and your successful blocks deal decent holy damage to your attacker. This is also great for ad tanking, and if you've got spells that are being cast at you. Mastery is going to be pretty important with this, so it's just something to look into all the way through and through. Blessed Hammer. Throws a Blessed Hammer that spirals outward, dealing holy damage to enemies that it hits, and causing them to deal 15% less damage to you on their next attack. Now, this is their next auto attack. So what you're looking at is your Hammer of the Righteous is now going to give you some passive trash tanking, and it doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot on its own, and it doesn't seem to play well. Hammer of the Righteous already hits everything as long as you've got Consecrate down. I just didn't see a good use for this, but I see a lot of pally tanks using it, so maybe it's just because it's a new spell, it's a new effect, but what you're looking at is this right here, and if you've seen a lot of other videos, you've seen them use it, but I didn't see it being 100% useful. Now, Consecrated Hammer, Hammer of the Righteous has no cooldown. Hammer of the Righteous, Shield of the Righteous, and Light of the Protector now always gain their benefit from Consecration. So you don't have to ever use Consecrate in this. This just takes Consecrate right out of your rotation, and you can constantly go in there and do everything. All this is doing is taking Consecrate away out of the rotation to where really it's always going to be down anyways, because the way the cooldown works with haste, it's going to play out nice. So Holy Shield out of these 3, in my opinion, was a better way to go. Level 45, Fist of Justice. Judgment reduces the remaining cooldown on Hammer of Justice by 10 seconds. Just makes it to where you can end up stunning more often. Fits pretty good. Repentance. 15-second cooldown. Forces an enemy target to meditate, incapacitating the target and dealing up to maximum of 25% of the target's health and damage over 1 minute. Only usable against demons, dragonkin, giants, humanoids, and undead. Still a great CC if you need it. Blinding Light, instant 1.5 minute cooldown, emits dazzling light in the direction, blinding all enemies. Now, what this is going to do is, but it just stuns the targets out on a 1.5 minute cooldown. Nothing too great on this. I mean, unless you're running with all paladins, there's not going to be anything that's going to work well with this. Blessing of Spell Warding. It's going to replace Blessing of Protection, and instead of it being a physical damage reduction now, it's going to do spell damage. It's going to protect them from all magical attacks for 10 seconds, but physical attacks will still hit them. Cannot be used on targets with Forbearance. Now, this is going to be one of those deals to where if boss is just casting spells, this is going to be the item that you go with instead of the physical, obviously. Blessing of Salvation, instant 1 minute cooldown, places a blessing on a party or raid member, temporarily removing all threat from the target and causing all additional threat generated to be transferred to you. It's just salve as we know it, guys. Threat generation transfer, 1 minute cooldown. Really, it doesn't do a whole hell of a lot, unless you know someone's going to take threat. And threat's not an issue in this anymore. It really isn't. Retribution Aura. You deal 470 holy damage to any non-enemy whose melee attacks strike a non-tank party or raid member within 60 yards. So basically, this is going to just work as Blessing of Salvation. If they do end up getting hit, like let's say the healer gets aggro, they do a melee swing on the healer, it's going to automatically turn around and come at you anyways, due to the fact that you're doing the damage to it. And really the way threat is right now, 470 holy damage doesn't seem like a lot, but it's enough to actually pull heal aggro. 75, Hand of the Protector, replaces Light of the Protector. Calls down the light to heal a friendly target for 25% of the target's missing health. Now, what I can see with this, I can see this being macroed, it is a really short cooldown, and it's not going to be based on you. If you're not taking a lot of damage, this is going to be great for the simple fact, like, if you're off tanking or something, you're going to be able to actually swap back and forth on who you want to end up healing, helping the healers out a bit. You do a simple mouse over macro with this, and then you're going to be able to actually pop somebody back up that might have just taken a real damaging blow by accidentally standing in something. It's going to be a very useful piece. But currently in the 5-mans that I've been running, it's not that great. But later on in raids and then actual Mythic Plus dungeons, this is going to help out a ton. Knights Templar reduces the cooldown of Divine Steed by 50% and reduces all damage taken while mounted on your Divine Steed by 20%. This is just basically a defensive cooldown for me now. Instead of just mobility, this is also defensive. So if I need to end up running over and getting something, I'm not going to get crushed in the process, and it also reduces from a 45-second CD to 22.5. Final Stand, passive. When you use Divine Shield, you also taunt all targets within 15 yards for 8 seconds. So basically, if you've got to end up pulling a bunch of stuff, let's say a whole mess of stuff ended up getting pulled, you can actually use your 5-minute cooldown, which would be Divine Shield, pull everything to you. It'll taunt all targets within 15 yards for 8 seconds. So get right in the middle, hit that button, and call it good. Level 90, Aegis of Light. Channeled, 5-minute cooldown. Channel an Aegis of Light that protects you and all allies standing within 10 yards behind of you for 6 seconds, reducing all damage taken by 20%. This is going to be great for stacked fights. And what you're looking at, we'll go ahead and demonstrate, but because it is kind of neat. There it is. Pretty neat cooldown as you throw it down there, and it looks a lot like God King Skovald whenever you're using the shield there, but that is what you're looking at. That is the Aegis of Light, 5-minute cooldown, and that's going to be pretty beneficial in some fights. I could think of, you know, if we had this on live right now, Mythic Gorefiend for one, alright, where everyone has to stack up, that is just going to be a non-stop damage reduction. Judgment of Light, passive. Judgment now applies Judgment of Light to the target, causing the next 40 successful attacks against the target to heal the attacker for very little, but it stacks up. This effect can only occur once per 1 second on each target. This is a solid amount of healing, as long as you've got if you've got a heavy melee group or actual people that are just attacking this target in general. But if it's focused on one single target, this is going to help supply some additional healing that you normally wouldn't end up getting. And then Consecrated Ground. Up to 6 allies standing within your consecration receive 688 healing every 0.9 seconds, and enemies within your consecration have 50% reduced movement speed. This is also pretty awesome. For those fights that you'll actually be stacked up a bit and doing grouping, this would be great to end up helping out with melee heals. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it does end up adding up. 688 healing every 0.9 seconds. That's going to end up catching up pretty quick and you know, helping people live. But another great stack piece on healing. Righteous Protector, passive. Shield of the Righteous reduces the remaining cooldown on Light of the Protector and Avenging Wrath by 3 seconds. This is just a wax and wane on where you want to end up putting your CDs. Now, if you're using Shield of the Righteous correctly, you're using it more for damage mitigation and not for actual damage throughput. Now, you can still use Shield of the Righteous as damage throughput as long as you save 1 charge to end up mitigating whatever is going to end up coming up that may otherwise kill you. As you always need to have some sort of mitigation up at some point. As long as you got 1 charge, you might as well use it for damage, I guess. This is going to reduce the remaining cooldown on Light of the Protector, which is your heal, and Avenging Wrath by 3 seconds. It's not a whole hell of a lot, but it does end up adding up if you wanted to go that way. I didn't feel it felt right in the play, so I didn't go with it. Seraphim is neat as fuck. It's instant, 30-second cooldown. The light temporarily magnifies your power, increasing your haste, critical strike, mastery, and versatility by 1,836. Consumes up to 2 charges of Shield of the Righteous, and lasts 8 seconds per charge. Basically, this is going back to, you're looking at a 16-second cooldown. You can have 50% uptime on this, but instead of using your Shield of the Righteous for damage mitigation, you're swapping it out for basically overall damage and cooldown reduction. and it's a little on the different side, but this is a neat piece to play with if you wanted to. And then finally we come to last, Defender. It's passive. Each enemy within 8 yards reduces the damage that you take and increases the damage that you deal by 3%. This effect has diminishing returns, so the more that you end up getting after X amount, it starts going to reduce the actual percentage of what you do. But this is still great for any ad tank situation, and it works really well in a 5-man. With this, guys, let's go ahead and move on to the artifact. Alright, so we're taking a look at Truth Guard. Really awesome piece. I love this. The sword looks great, the shield looks great. For a base model, this thing is rocking. Now, one of the things that I've always loved is a good looking shield in this game. I know a lot of people feel the same way when they look at the shield. That spells out class. I mean, look at the bulwark. So you've got your different color schemes here, and all of them look really good. Then you go in the Light of the Titans. This thing only gets better as you go. Extremely damn good. And we'll let it spin around again so you can look at both the sword and the shield. But I enjoy this thing extremely well, just for the simple fact that, man, it looks really damn good. Really good. So here you have the sword. It's got a little bit more of a bulky edge on it. One reason why I would end up rolling a Prot Paladin is just for this artifact skin alone. It looks really damn good. And then you've got the second color scheme. Awesome. It's just overall awesome piece through and through. And then Divine Protector. Alright, if you don't like the sword, go with a hammer. And this is going to take you back to the golden shiny Paladin. Basically, you're going to be the disco ball at every party. That's all there is to it. So you can see the mace. They kind of change it up a bit. And then apparently they're working on one that's got a flail also. It's not yet implemented, but we'll look into that one whenever it comes in. And as it comes around, we'll let you see the front of it. Let it spin, let it spin, let it spin, spin. Alright, so here's the green one. Another really goldish one. I mean, all of this is going to be... And then Dark Keeper's Ward. Boom. PvP, guys. It's looking pretty interesting. It's got a very ICC feel on this one. We'll let it spin around, but I feel like it seems more like an ICC piece. Maybe not so much ICC, but Grand Crusader. I mean, that time piece in there, or the Time Wardens. Either way, pretty damn awesome. We'll let it spin around so you can see the front and the different colors. Loving this piece. All the way through and through. It just looks that damn good. And with this, guys, let's go ahead and move on to the traits. Alright, taking a look at the traits here. And what you're looking at is Eye of Tyr. This is your ability. This is what we discussed in the actual ability section, but it's a 1-minute cooldown, does decent AoE damage to all nearby enemies, and reduces all damage they deal to you by 25% for 9 seconds. Pretty solid deal. First thing out of the box, though, Truth Guard's Light. Rank 1 of 1, increases holy damage dealt by 5%. Then you have Faith's Armor. Increases armor by 10% while you are below 40% health. Just really a decent wax and wane. With this here, if you do end up going under 40% health in a normal dungeon, I don't see it happening. But if you do, this is going to give you a little bit more benefit against physical attacks and give you a chance to actually heal yourself with Light of the Protector. Good gameplay out of this. There really is, for the simple fact that once you're under that, again, I've mentioned under that 50% mark, Light of the Protector actually does some really decent healing. Before then, not so much. So once you get under 40%, it's giving you a little bit more cushion until you can get that self-heal up. And then you've got Righteous Crusader. Oh, and by the way, this is going to be 10, 20, and 30%. Almost forgot that. Righteous Crusader. Passive. Increases damage dealt by Shield of the Righteous by 3%, and Shield of the Righteous reduces damage you take by an additional 1%. And again, this is going to be 3, 6, or 10%, and then 1, 2, or 3%. Not a lot coming out of this, but it does end up helping out a bit, having that a little bit of extra damage edge. Resolve of Truth increases maximum health by 1%, 2%, or 3% normally, and again, both of these are actually empowered through relics. Bulwark of Order, rank 0 and 1. Avenger's Shield also shields you for 8 seconds, absorbing 20% as much damage as it dealt. This is just what we've got as a tier set currently on live. Huge damage reduction out of this. and they brought it back as an artifact trait. Once you end up getting this, you're basically not going to be stopped. This is an overpowered ability, extremely overpowered. And then you end up, let's say on a boss fight, you take the tier 15 talent that increases the damage of Avenging Shield and also gives it a higher chance to trigger. Single target boss fights, you're going to just absorb everything. Painful Truce, rank 0-1. While Ardent Defender is active, all melee attacks that strike you deal holy damage back to the attacker. It's alright. This is on a 2-minute cooldown, and you really shouldn't have to worry about that additional damage as much as when you're using this thing, you're going to be at really low health, and you're wanting it to end up popping you back up to life if it does end up getting expired. So I don't see this being a great thing whatsoever. Consecration and Flame, rank 0-3, increases the duration of consecration by 1, 2, or 3 seconds. Tears Enforcer, passive. The knowledge of the Watchers causes Truthguard to deal very little damage to all enemies within 5 yards of each target hit by Avenger's Shield. So when you cast out your Avenger's Shield, it's just going to add a little bit of AoE from each target. Hammer Time. Sorry. Rank 0-3, increases damage done by Hammer of the Righteous and Blessed Hammer by 5, 10, or 15%. Stern Judgment, rank 0-3, increases a critical strike chance of judgment by 3, 6, or 10%. Forbearant Faithful, 0-1, each active forbearance you have caused increases the cooldown recovery rate of all your forbearance causing abilities by 50%. So if you shield somebody, if you do this, if you do that, whatever you end up using that uses forbearance, this is actually going to reduce the cooldown of all those forbearance creation items, which is, there's a Divine Shield for you, you've got Lay on Hands, you've got Blessing of Protection. There's a lot of them out there that'll end up causing forbearance. Unflinching Defense, 0-3, passive, reduces the cooldown of Ardent Defender by 10, 20, or 30 seconds. So instead of it being a 2-minute cooldown, it will be a minute and a half. Bastion of Truth, increases block chance by 2, 4, or 6%. This is going to be pretty solid, especially lined up with Holy Shield. Scatter the Shadows, rank 0-3, increases healing done by Light of the Protector by 10, 20, or 30%. Now this just means that you'll be able to heal more passively, but still this is going to get better the lower you are. Sub 50% is usually where you want to end up seeing this being used, because it does have a semi-decent cooldown. Light of the Titans, Light of the Protector will also heal for 41,000 over 15 seconds. That's a pretty solid heal. I mean, that's basically, even though we don't have, Eternal Flame, even though we don't have that anymore, that's basically what this is going to do with Light of the Protector. So you're going to use this more frequently to try and get that additional healing. And then Sacrifice of the Just, reduces the cooldown of Blessing of Sacrifice by 60 seconds. Not horrible, makes it a 2-minute cooldown instead of 3. So with this, guys, here we have it. Let's go ahead and move right on to what everybody wants to see, the gameplay. So we're here looking at the Protection Paladin gameplay, and I'm really, on most of my DPS ones, I would talk about abilities, but abilities are fairly general. You've got Avenger's Shield that's going to do some solid damage on a longer cooldown to end up helping out, and it also has a silence effect on the first target it hits. Pretty decent. And then you've got Consecrate, just general AoE, but it also ends up controlling a lot of your different abilities. Now the thing about Consecrate is, while you're standing in it, it's not only improving your Shield of the Righteous, your Light of the Protector, and your Hammer of the Righteous, but you can also talent it to where it heals anyone else that's in there. A lot of good gameplay out of Consecration, but you can talent to where you don't have to use it to get the benefits out of everything, but you do lose out. Really, I don't want to get too hardcore into the actual abilities, for the simple fact I want to talk about it as a tank itself. How does this thing perform? How does it play out? That's what I'm trying to get into. Now, with the abilities, if you're interested in them, there is that section still. You can go back and look at it at any time. But what we're looking at is timing with this. So this is by far the easiest of the tanks. And the reason for it is because instead of it being split between physical and magical damage reduction depending on what ability you hit. Like most of the other tanks, what this is actually is everything has just reducing all damage you take. So it's all simplified. It doesn't matter what button you hit, you're just going to reduce damage. So, okay, I need to end up reducing a lot of damage. I'll use Guardian of the Ancient Kings because that's going to do 50%. Ardent Defender is going to do 20%, and if it does end up killing me, I'm going to be brought back to life with 12% of my max health. And then you've got Divine Shield, which protects you from all damage and spells for 8 seconds, and no longer drops threat. Really, this is the pieces that you're looking at. Even Divine Steed, your mobility piece, can be brought into doing a damage reduction every 20 some odd seconds. Your main core rotation, your actual active mitigation here, alright? Your active mitigation does a huge amount of damage reduction. So all you are is just solid reducing damage. Very solid tank. But at the same point, boring. And I'm not saying super boring, I'm just saying after a long while, there's not a lot to think about. And if you're looking for an easier tank to end up playing, Protection Paladin's going to do it. But with Shield of the Righteous constantly doing a damage reduction, as long as you keep one charge up, you're golden, because that's going to be almost 50% damage reduction no matter what you look at. Really insane on how much damage reduction this has overall. If you notice, health bar doesn't really move at all, and if it does, and let's say you do end up getting low enough, you hit Light of the Protector and it's going to heal you for 25% of your missing health. Doesn't seem like a lot, but when you've got tanks that are sitting at 2 million health at level 110, if you're down 50%, that's a, 500,000 heal. Huge amount of healing off of that one ability. And again, it's got a chance to crit, there's all this different stuff that goes into it, and you also get an increased amount of healing if you're standing in your Consecrate. So, all in all, it's a great piece. It really is. It's going to smooth everything out if you do end up taking some damage, but with all the damage reduction, now you have a lot of mechanics in here also, as you're playing like a DPS with a DPS rotation. You're just following through, making sure your main priorities are on cooldown, and you're going through keeping those up. All at the same time, by doing this, you're really not taking a whole hell of a lot of damage, and you're just going to end up activating whatever cooldowns needed. Now, with Shield of the Righteous no longer requiring Holy Power, it's just on a basic recharge rate, with Judgment having a chance of reducing that. Really, that cooldown doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. You will always be able to keep one charge up and still end up using two. Never end up capping out the 3, obviously, because then you're just wasting it. But you are looking at some solid damage reduction and a very simplified rotation. That is all there is to it. With this, guys, as much as I hate to be a buzzkill on this spec, very, very simplified, but very solid at the same time. I mean, if you enjoy an easier tank to end up playing, this is going to be the one for you, as to where there's not a lot of thought that goes into this thing. And with that, let's go ahead and move on to the actual logs. Alright, so we're looking at Odin here in the Halls of Valor, last boss, and we did have a Lust phase on here, but what you're looking at for damage is extremely high for a fairly simple tank spec. And Shield of the Righteous obviously ended up taking off because it does have a damage increase all the way around. Melee was right behind it though. Lots and lots of melee damage for some reason. Avenger's Shield, it's getting close. Judgment, Consecration, Hammer of the Righteous, Holy Shield. So this is just your basics where you end up seeing the damage, and it all started taking off right after the Lust phase. Main reason for that was, well, everything you have is reduced by haste, so it allows you to end up doing a lot more damage. Now, what I wanted to look at was, where are we at? Let's go to resources. This is my health through the whole fight. The only reason why I dipped down that far was because I stood in one of Odin's main abilities and I didn't use a cooldown, just to see how much damage it would actually do baseline. I believe the only thing I reduced it with was just a Shield of the Righteous. Not a lot going on, but as you can see, my health never went under 75% the whole entire fight. a lot of damage reduction. Damage taken, and again, here it is. That's the Radiant Tempest, which I just stood in on purpose. So, I want to also take a look at, let's go to God King Skovald. Now, you'll see where the damage is real high here. This is because of Ragnarok. Somebody else ended up grabbing the shield, and it caused a lot of little issues, but we still ended up surviving. So, damage done on it, again, you're looking at melee being extremely high for what it should be. And then Shield of the Righteous, Judgment, Consecration, so on and so forth. Real solid damage, but then resources, yet again. Even through that Ragnarok, I didn't go under 75% health. The damage reduction on this spec, overall, is insane. Absolutely insane. Nothing here is going to end up showing. Here's Fenrir. Alright, okay, I touched 75%, and I believe that was due to, let's see what happened. Melee, Ferocious Bite. So I just ended up getting hit by a couple different things. Nothing too bad, period. I mean, the damage out of this thing is, no cooldowns were used, except for the general mitigation, so it's just a solid physical damage reduction. Not a lot of play through that style, though. Unfortunately, there's no choices. Okay, so here's Herja. We'll take a look at that. You see the excess damage coming through from the damage taken, and then the damage done. Yet again, melee's on top, Shield of the Righteous. We're going to go over to resources. Okay, so I had one dip on Herja where I went under, and I believe that was because I was actually standing between the ranged and the actual boss to end up doing the soaking, so I did end up taking a little bit more damage. But it's still, Shield of Light, and then a couple melee hits got through. So I didn't end up timing a Shield of the Light right, which is an ability she uses to actually knock you across. But this is a very simple, meaty spec. That's about all I can say. There's a lot of meat to it, but it's very basic. And with this, guys, I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you ended up taking a lot of good information out of this. And with that, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.